Hello everyone, welcome to our lesson 4 of our Rudiment of Music ABRSM grade 4. My name is Lieutenant Ernest Emediogu and I'm your facilitator for this week's lesson. In this week's lesson, we'll be talking about the Alto Clef. Our learning outcomes are as follows. We're going to introduce the Alto Clef and then we'll also try to help you understand how to position your key signatures within the Alto Clef. And then we'll end by learning how to transpose from the treble to the alto clef or vice versa, or from the bass clef to the alto clef and vice versa. So let's get straight into it right away. Now, this is the alto clef. I guess um, many of us have not seen this kind of clef, not in standard music, and you will know why. But this is how the alto clef is normally represented. Just so you have this uh, two lines, two vertical lines, and then you have what looks like a B. But you have like what looks like a B or like a 3, depending on how you want to interpret it. Okay, so now let's look at some of the angles to this alto clef. Of course, we've looked at the G and the F clefs in grade 1, right? Lessons 8 to 10. We consider the G and the F clef. That's the treble and the bass clef. So by now, everybody knows how to draw that and how to, when you have your bass and your treble clef, how to, position the letters, the alphabetical letters, the musical letters around the lines and spaces based on the type of clefs. But we also have another clef. Apart from G clef and F clef, we have the third clef, which is the C clef. The C clef. Now, depending on how you draw the C clef, if you draw the C clef so that this structure here that looks like a 3 is centered on the middle line of the clef. You can see this is the middle line, the third line of the clef. You can see this C clef, we call this C clef actually, is centered on the middle line of the stave, then it is an alto clef. It's very important that when you draw your C clef, ensure that it is running through, it is centered on the third line. If it is not centered on the third line, then it is no longer the alto clef. And there is another clef that uses this same symbol centered on another line, but this same symbol, and that's called the tenor clef. We're going to look at that in grade 5. So that is why if you draw this out of position, then you may be dealing with the tenor clef and not with the alto clef. But we are dealing with the alto clef here. So for this to be the alto clef, this C clef must be centered on the third line. So please note that when you draw it, make sure it is centered on the third line. And the significance is that this third line, which is your middle line, now becomes what you know as your middle C. So by now, I am sure everybody knows what a middle C is. On the G clef, you know where your middle C is, below the G clef. The first ledger line below the G clef is your middle C. On the bass clef, the first ledger line above your bass clef is the middle C. But on the alto clef, that's the C clef, the alto clef, the middle stave is your middle C. And they also, so when you play this middle line, when you play this note here, it's going to sound the same way with the first ledger line below the treble clef, the G clef, that's the middle C. It's going to sound the same way with the first ledger line above the bass clef, that's the middle C. So this middle C, this is your middle C in your alto clef. That's why so this is called C. It's called line C. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is the alto clef is not very common. That's why if you look at your sheet music, you only see G and F clef. That's why we just didn't bother. We didn't introduce it until grade 4, so that you just know about it. But really, it's not very important in both instrumental and vocal music. The only instrument that uses the alto clef is the viola. The viola. So the viola uses the. So if you are a viola player, you should then this is what you'll be seeing in your sheet music, and you should be able to interpret this. Once you know this is C, then you know this is D, this is E, this is F, this is G, this is C. Going down, this is B, this is A, so this is G, and the first line is F. So you kind of you're able to once you know your C, you're able to count up and down and get the same um, know what the other lines and spaces are. All right. Now, we want to look at key signature arrangements for the alto clef. When we did the treble and the soprano clef, we're able to tell you where you should put, if a key signature, tell you where you should put the sharps, where you should put the flats, in terms of the arrangement. So up to this grade 4, we've not done that already, but up to this grade 4, we will be considering major scales with 5 sharps and 5 flats. I think in grade 3, we ended with major scales with 4 sharps. That's I think that's E major, and 4 flats. That's A flat major. But in grade 4, we'll be looking at 5 sharps and 5 flats. The reason is I mentioned that is because of what I'm going to say next. So in your alto clef, all the letters. So if you have a key, for example, that has 4 sharps or 5 sharps, it's still the same letters that makes up those the let's say for example your E major, your E major. All the letters that make up the 4 sharps in the E major are the same letters that makes up the 4 sharp, whether you are representing the E major in a G clef, in an F clef, or in a B clef, sorry, in a C clef, that is in an alto clef. It is the same letters that represent the key signatures, but where they are positioned on the lines and spaces of each of these clefs will be different. I don't think that should be surprising to you because already when we did from all the grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, you've seen that when you have your alignment, that is when you have in G clef, when you arrange your letters of a key signature and then you come to bass clef, it's not the same arrangement. It's not the same arrangement, because the lines and the spaces are not exactly the same in both clefs. The same thing in the alto clef. It's not the way you arrange yes, the letters are the same, but it's not the way you arrange the letters in the treble clef that you're going to arrange them in the positions will change, but the letters and the letters that will come first, for example, if you are dealing with D sharp for D major, for example, you know that F has to be sharpened first before C. So the order of sharps must still be the same, but the positions now will kind of differ based on where they should be on the lines and spaces. And this is what I mean, for example. So, for example, this is what I mean. If I'm only dealing with one sharp, that's F. This is my F. This is F, all right? And then this is C below it. So this is 2 sharps. If you are dealing with D major, for example, these are just the 2 sharps you need, F and C. And you can see it's still the same F and C, whether it's D sharp in G clef or in F clef, but the positions differ. Like this is a space. This is a space. You remember where it's going to be in a treble clef? It's going to be, the F is going to be on the 5th line. That's this first sharp will have been on the 5th line, on the final line for the G clef, but now it's on the space on the so it's so it's you cannot. F has to always be the first to be sharpened, then followed by C, then followed by G, then followed by D. All right, and then lastly, when we are going to be dealing with B major in grade 4, we are now going to add one more sharp, and that sharp is what now? So we're going to be adding one more sharp, and that sharp is A. This is A. So you see how it is arranged. So just this shouldn't be a problem because you've done treble clef and bass clef, and you can arrange up to 4 sharps and 4 flats. So just translate the same knowledge to the alto clef, if that makes sense. Then the other thing now is the flats is the same thing. The flats also are arranged. You have B flat coming first, then you have E flat coming next, then you have A flat coming next, then you have, D flat coming next, then you have G flat coming next for a key with 5 flats. So just note that in terms of arranging your key signature, it's the same letters and the same order. This letter has to come before this letter, that letter has to come before, but you have to be sure of where you are putting them on the stave and how they should be arranged. You see, this one is down, the first one is down, then up, then down again, then up, then down again. On the other hand, this one is up, up, down, then up. Then let me clean this so that you see what I mean. So you have up, down, up, down, and then down, not up again. You understand? So up, look at it, down, up, down, then the fifth sharp is down. So please note that tricky difference. Otherwise, every other thing remains the same with the treble clef and the bass clef. In terms of the position in the ordering. So now we want to talk about transpositions within the alto clef. What you need to put in mind is, where is your middle C? On the alto clef, when you are giving a note, remember when you are giving group of notes, remember your middle C is the third stave line. That same middle C is the first ledger line below the treble clef and the first ledger line above the bass clef. So those three notes will sound the same. First ledger line below the treble clef, first ledger line above the bass clef, and the third line on the stave of the alto clef. They are the same pitch, regardless of where they are written on these three staves. Now you can use that to just know where the other letters are if you are transposing, moving from a clef to another clef and retaining the pitch. Now, example, we are moving from alto clef to treble clef, all right? And this is our middle C. I asked myself, I said, this is the middle C. This middle C, I will go and write it as the middle C on the treble clef. If I'm to transpose from alto to treble, I'll just, okay, that's my middle C. So every other note that comes here, going up here, or going down here, I will just relate it to what I have from this middle C. You see, going up here, the same thing. This is my G and that is the G. And then from the middle C, going down. So if you're able to know where your middle C is, that can serve as an anchor for you to be able to position the other notes you are given on the alto clef. Also, you can be given notes on the treble clef and you're asked to transpose to the alto clef. It's the same thing. Use the middle C as an anchor to know where the other notes are going to fall within the alto clef. Similarly, when you are asked to transpose from the alto clef to the bass clef, or from the bass clef to the alto clef, middle C is your third line. So let's say this is our middle C, okay? That middle C is, look at it here, the first line is this one, please. So just to wrap up, as I was saying, I don't think I finished the other one with the bass clef, but just note that what I meant is locate your middle C as an anchor, and then from that build up or build down. Trace all the other notes, no matter where they are. Trace all the other notes on the clef. If you get what I mean. And you can be given notes from the bass clef, and then you're asked to transpose it to the alto clef. Use the write out your middle C. It's good you do it on paper, because sometimes if you are trying to do a mental calculation, you may run into some mistake, except if you have familiarized yourself with it. Otherwise, write it out on paper and then try to make your comparisons. So that brings us to the end of today's class. Our exercises 1 and 4 in our workbook, pages 10 to 11. Please try to do these exercises, as they help you to have good mastery of what we've learned today. I'll see you next time. Until then, remain blessed and keep doing your rudiment of music. God bless you. Bye.